This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the Brewers are back in action this afternoon as they take on the Cubs out at spring training. Christian Yelich slotted into the designated hitter spot as he continues to work his way back into form following back surgery that ended his 2024 season early. Milwaukee, counting on the 33-year-old to produce, feels he can come through for them.
Yeah, I still think I can play at a pretty high level. I felt like I was playing at a pretty high level last year up until I got hurt, which was unfortunate. It just came on pretty quick. I was feeling pretty good, and then it went downhill fast, but it's how it goes sometimes. But I still think I can do it at a high level, and I just got to go out there and do it.
Opening day is fast approaching. Milwaukee gets things going 2 weeks from Thursday in New York against the Yankees. Turning to the NFL, it's day 2 of the free agency negotiating period. Packers agreed to a pair of deals yesterday with 49ers guard Aaron Banks and Raiders cornerback Nate Hobbs. Both of those deals can be signed tomorrow when the new league year officially begins. Meanwhile, Badgers have led the second class of 2026. 3-star wide receiver Tayshaun Bardo announced his decision earlier today. Chose the Badgers of offers from Indiana, Michigan State, and others. As for Wisconsin, they will open spring practice on Thursday.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
When a company only does business in Wisconsin, that's Wisconsin Strong. Rural Mutual provides all lines of insurance, including commercial, farm, home, and auto. And your premiums stay right here to keep Wisconsin strong. Local agents, local underwriters, local claims adjusters.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, 2 Badgers were named All Big Ten today. John Tonji, a consensus first-team pick, while John Blackwell was a consensus honorable mention pick. Wisconsin going to face Northwestern or Minnesota in the Big Ten tournament on Thursday. And the Bucs back in action tonight against the Pacers in Indiana. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil, Print.
That's it, well to left. Way back there, and it is gone. Fifth home run of Cactus League play for Rhys Hoskins, and his first one that isn't a solo shot. That's it, well to left center field. Happ is back at the wall. It is gone. Vinny Capra have a spring. 5 homers. This one a 3-run shot, and it's 5-0 Brewers.
I feel like we're under the radar every year, which is fine.
It's been their postseason 6 of the last 7 years, and you're under the radar.
Every year, though. It's your guys' fault, probably.
Should be me.
I blame us.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Those Brewers highlights from their game today against the Cubs. They're in the 3rd inning. Right now, the 1st inning, Rhys Hoskins and Vinny Capra, who've shown a lot of power. I believe they're 1 and 2 or tied for 1st and 2nd. I think they're at the top of the Cactus League leaderboard in home runs. And just in the last 2 minutes, Jake Bauers just hit another home run. So the Brewers beating up on Justin Steele for whatever that's worth at spring training today. I think they're now up 5-3. I saw people complaining about Mizorowski's command. I was in another studio working on something else, but I could put 2 and 2 together. That must mean that Mizorowski was pitching, and that's how the Brewers, they were up 4-0 after the 1st inning. Then the Cubs got a little closer, and then why am I recapping a spring training game? It's a spring training game. It's fun to watch and listen to, but if you're not watching or listening to it, it doesn't mean that much. But it's nice to have Brewers baseball on in the afternoon, whether it's on the radio or the TV. I'd throw some highlights in there. Little taste of baseball. We're just a couple weeks away. Put that into the intro tonight. This is the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. I hope you're having an excellent day. An excellent, excellent day. A little bit lower and slower than yesterday. Yesterday was, those are the best days in sports radio, I think, when something happens, when news breaks or we're reacting to a big game or an important result, and the phones are ringing off the hook and people are throwing hot takes around, and the takes may or may not make any sense, but we're just reacting strongly with emotion because that's what sports talk radio is. I got a tweet from a listener, and I like this guy. I believe his name on Twitter is Mike Oxlong, which is very funny. Tweeted at me after the show last night and said, little reactionary today, in my opinion. That show was overly reactionary. It's a daily sports talk show. That's the point. So we threw some takes around last night about the Packers' new free agent signings. I think most of us were, I don't want to say angry about the signings, not what I was looking for. Okay. I'm not going to yell at the Packers for not spending or for being passive. Just really hasn't been their MO with Brian Gutekunst. When they've had money to spend, they have spent it. They've been very active and aggressive. So you can't hold that against them. They just didn't spend on the players that I thought they were going to spend on, or the positions more specifically. So a little frustration last night. I've had 24 hours, as have you, to kind of learn more about these players if you're interested in learning more about the players, and to kind of maybe better understand the Packers thinking on both of these signings. Nate Hobbs and Aaron Banks, the two players that they added, one the corner from the Raiders and a lineman from the Niners, a guard. So I want to continue to react to those signings. We can talk a little bit about Badgers hoops, the Big Ten tournament starting later this week. The all Big Ten teams came out today. John Tonje firmly on team number 1. John Blackwell, I believe, honorable mention, which a lot of Badgers fans disagreed with. I guess I really wasn't thinking where I thought John Blackwell would end up on any awards lists. So we can talk about that tonight. The Bucks also play in Indiana tonight. The Bucks are in a little bit of an interesting spot in that they've looked a lot better since the trade deadline, but they still can't beat the Celtics, the Cavs, or the Knicks. The Magic gave them fits over the weekend as well. So another good test tonight, but these are the tests that the Bucks really haven't been able to pass, even though they've looked improved after the trade deadline. So all of that is on the table tonight. I'll take your calls as well, 608-321-1670. And you can comment on the live stream, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter at Wisco Grant. The video simulcast of the show is up and running as well. I think I was pretty clear last night, but for those who maybe weren't listening, I'll reiterate very quickly to start the show. I was of the opinion, and I think the correct opinion, that the Packers need a game breaker at wide receiver and a game breaker at edge rusher. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't believe in the wide receivers that they have or the edge rushers that they have. But at this moment in time, this offseason going into year number 3 with Jordan Love, I don't think the Packers are in a spot where they can just hope that Lucas Van Ness takes a big jump. I don't think that they can rely on Dontavian Wicks and Jaden Reed to figure it out. I think we need to be a little bit more sure about these positions going into year number 3. And then if the young guys finally pop, well, then great. You have a good problem because then you have more good players, more game-breaking players than you thought. I thought they needed a game breaker at wide receiver or edge rusher. I think the best way at this moment in time to acquire a game breaker is through a free agent signing or a trade. It's pretty hard to get consistent game-breaking impact from a draft pick, especially as we've seen from the Packers at edge rusher. They just have not drafted instant impact players up front. They've been able to find corners who play well early. They've been able to find wide receivers who play well early, and offensive linemen. Edge rusher, it's like, hey, give us like 3 years that'll actually turn into 6 or 7, right? That's been a low and slow, kind of slow bake position for them. So it's not that I'm against additions at O-line and corner, which is where they added yesterday. I've often said that you should add to both of those positions every year in the draft. You should be drafting a corner, at least one corner every year, and probably an O-lineman every year if you have your full complement of picks. Those are just 2 position groups that you should always be feeding young, talented options that could, at the very least, hopefully serve as depth, and best case scenario, develop into great starting, maybe high-level starting players, right? So I think the Packers could have been better served using their free agency dollars or potential trade assets to acquire a wide receiver and an edge. And I thought they could have better drafted at O-line and corner. The Packers clearly don't see it that way, which is why they made the moves yesterday. So I'll stop beating the dead horse, and we could try to understand their point of view just a little bit better. Let's start with Nate Hobbs, the corner. I think this is a much more straightforward addition, the corner. All of his money is guaranteed in year 1 and in year 2. Contract details, for the most part, don't interest me. I know a lot of people are into different parts of sports, like a lot of people in the NBA. It's like the CBA and making the money and the trades work. It's just not really something that interests me. The salary cap side of things, that's for Ken Ingles. It's just not really my thing. But the details that we got from Aaron Wilson, who for some reason always has Packers news. He's not on the Packers beat. I think he's a Texas sports guy. I think he's based in Texas. So it's kind of weird that he always have these details. But Nate Hobbs, 4-year, $48 million, big signing bonus in year 1. In year 2, the base salary drops way off, right? It's a lot of signing bonus. And then the base salary in year 3 and year 4 is higher. But you could then assume, especially for a young player, if the Packers are going to keep him into year 3 and year 4 of the contract, they'll probably adjust the deal, right? They'll probably push money out or convert some of that money into a signing bonus so it's lesser on their cap. This is not financially a large burden of a contract. Some notes about this player that I wrote down that I think probably matter to the Packers. He's not very grabby. He doesn't commit a lot of penalties. He didn't commit a single penalty when playing in the slot last year. He only has 11 penalties in his career in 2,890 snaps in coverage at defensive back, whether it be boundary or corner. So a guy that they think can come in and not really hurt them with holding or pass interference, a guy who's got pretty good discipline. I would imagine that appeals to the Packers. He also plays the run pretty well. He's graded really well as a run defender. I believe 6th in the league since he started playing in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus. He's got a career grade against the run of 81, which doesn't mean anything to me, but it's 6th best among his peers in his time in the NFL, which is probably something that matters to Jeff Hafley. Year 1, what did the defense do really well, really without fault? Stopping the run. Even in their lesser games or their worst performances as a defense, they still stop the run really well. So I'd imagine that's important. It's probably something that was really appealing to the Packers when it came to pursuing Nate Hobbs. So I started asking yesterday when they brought in Hobbs and they signed him, it's like, okay, so is he going to play outside? He can play in the slot. He's been a slot defender. But what about Javon Bullard? Everyone's, screaming from the mountaintops. The Packers love Javon Bullard in the slot. He's going to be their slot guy. He's going to be their nickel guy. So is Hobbs. Where's Hobbs going to fit? I think I'm overcomplicating it. Okay. Bill Huber had a report out at SI. I don't know if it was late yesterday. I didn't see it until this morning. And if you're watching on simulcast, I'll throw it up on the screen. This was his report for Sports Illustrated. Hobbs played primarily in the slot as a rookie in 21, as well as in 2023 and 2024. In 2022, he was mostly a perimeter cornerback. The Packers will put that versatility to use. According to a source, one option would be Hobbs playing cornerback in the base defense and then moving into the slot on passing downs. His position could be matchup based, whether it be covering a specific receiver or being closer to the line of scrimmage against strong running games. And that would kind of track based on his performance as a run defender over the years. Again, I think in his time in the NFL, 6th best among active corners in that time when playing the run. He's got a pretty good career grade against playing the run. So basically what Bill Huber is reporting, hey guys, he might play on the boundary in certain looks. He might play in the slot on certain looks. He might be up closer to the line of scrimmage against certain offenses. Basically, he's an option at corner for Jeff Hafley to use how he sees fit, right? He might be depth one week. He might be featured strongly one week. He might play here one Sunday and over here another, right? I don't think it serves us to waste time saying, well, he's this outside corner and then Bullard plays here and then Nix is going to play here. And, the safeties will slide like this, that, and the Valentine will do this, that. Like, I think that's useless for us to do at this point in time. I think he should be viewed, and Bill Huber's report kind of backs this line of thinking up. I think he should be viewed as basically a chess piece for Jeff Hafley. Right? It's like, here's another player to slide over here, to use over there, to line up in this spot or that spot based on the opponent, based on the matchup, based on who else is healthy or available. Just another option for Jeff Hafley. And by the way, how good does Jeff Hafley have it so far in Green Bay in his time here? Right? He arrives the same offseason they go get Xavier McKinney. Right? Like that's pretty good. They also draft Edgerrin Cooper. And then the next offseason, they said, well, we're not going to stop there. We're not even going to wait to the draft to add to the secondary. We're going to go out and spend on a corner who can play here or there or anywhere. Like Jeff Hafley arrived in Green Bay and has had resources fed to him really from the jump. And I'm sure, Vagabond John would mention this, and I'll just get it out of the way with so we can save time if he eventually calls tonight. But I'm sure Joe Barry would have loved that, right? Like I'm sure Joe Barry would have loved to not have to play Rudy Ford. I'm sure he would have loved to not have to be, saddled with this corner or this linebacker. Like Jeff Hafley's had a lot of resources funneled his way, not just in the way of draft picks like Edgerrin Cooper or Evan Williams or Javon Bullard, but big free agents, legit free agents, not back end of his career. See if you can catch lightning in a bottle for a couple of months. Like, no, legitimate, high level, top of the market free agents now in Xavier McKinney last year. And then this year with Nate Hobbs. Jeff Hafley has it pretty good. And I expect that defense to continue to progress. I thought they were pretty good in year one under Jeff Hafley. I thought they were the most trustworthy unit the final month of the season, which I keep bringing up because Packers fans talk about the defense like it's some huge issue that needs to be addressed. Like, no, it could get better. And they could certainly stand to add a game breaker here and there. And the pass rush needs to improve. But they were really, really good against the run. And even I didn't love their players at corner, but they got by. And the defense gave the Packers a chance to go into Philly wildcard weekend and win, and the offense just didn't have it. So I expect it to get even better under year 2 or in year 2 under Jeff Hafley. So I'm looking forward to now. And that's not even saying, they could continue to add. They could add another guy on defense. Trey Hendrickson's still out there. I'm kind of hoping, praying, wishing for that. And of course, the draft as well. So Jeff Hafley gets another good resource. And I just think it's best for us to think of Nate Hobbs as this versatile chess piece that Jeff Hafley can use however he wants. I don't think I don't think it's beneficial for us at this moment in time, at least, to try to slot him here or there on the depth chart. It could change week to week, which you want guys like that on the defense who are fluid and matchup dependent, and Jeff Hafley gets a good option. Aaron Banks, this is a little bit more complicated, okay? I hated this yesterday, talked about it last night, because it's big money for a guard being spent by a team that's really good at finding offensive linemen. So tackles are the most valuable. I think then guards significantly behind, and then probably center last of all. The Packers found their guards in the 4th and the 7th round. Sean Ryan at right guard is a 3rd round pick. Elton Jenkins at left guard was a 2nd round pick. Was Josh Myers a 2nd or a 3rd? He's gone now, so I guess that's beside the point. But this is not a team that's needed to use 1st round picks on offensive linemen, even though that's where they took Jordan Morgan last year. They have not needed to spend big money on offensive linemen. It's like the Brewers with relievers. Like, why would they go out and spend a pile of money on a free agent relief pitcher when they're so good at developing them, bringing them along? That's why this didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It's taking forever to get the actual contract numbers for Banks. And I think that's probably because the money really isn't all that big. Like, people saw 4 years, 77. It's like, wow. It's like, well, it's because the contract's probably really not that big. They made a significant investment in him. Don't get me wrong. It's not like they're paying him the vet minimum or minimum wage, as I was joking yesterday. It's still a legit investment, but I don't think the actual number, whenever we get it, will blow doors like yesterday's 4 for 77. So that's probably something that I need to remind myself of, even though it's probably bad for the radio show to be like, actually, the contract's pretty reasonable. Like, no, I want to get fired up about how they way overspent for this guy. But I think that's disingenuous. I think the contract, when we finally learn the details, will be pretty reasonable. And I don't think it's, the jaw-dropping number that most people saw yesterday. I thought, what? That much for who? Everyone likes giving a letter grade to a signing or a draft pick, right? I give their draft an A. I give this signing a B-. I read you 2 grades and 2 little blurbs from Tyler Brook yesterday, who's a Packers guy, but a great football analyst for the 33rd team. And I think he gave these 2 signings like a low B and a C or 2 Cs. I can't remember. Not exactly glowing, right? I don't think we can give the Aaron Banks signing a grade right now. I think it's an incomplete, because I think this is a precursor move. This move was made in mind, or I guess the back of the Packers, the back of their thought process or their strategy was, we're going to make this move so we can do this. So we're allowed to do that. So ABC 1, 2, 3, XYZ. Schematically, this feels like the beginning of a more physical approach. We want to be a little bit heftier and thicker. We want to be able to run a little bit more physically, maybe less zone, more duo, maybe Jordan Love under center a little bit more, hard ball fakes, the likes of which we saw more in his rookie year than we saw last year. So this is a scheme precursor. I think this signing is also an alignment precursor. Packers fans, or Packers people, I should say, have reported, Tom Silverstein and others reporting, that Elton Jenkins is going to move to center to replace Josh Myers. So then Aaron Banks slots in at left guard. But I don't think the Packers are going to stop there. I think the Packers are looking to make other changes. I've heard that maybe quietly they're looking around like, does anyone want Rasheed Walker? Like, really good left tackle, but maybe we're not so high on paying him in a year when he needs a new contract. So if the Packers are interested in exploring options with Rasheed Walker, maybe that means Jordan Morgan slots in at left tackle. I know a lot of Packers fans on Twitter are like, this means that they can move on from Rasheed Walker and slide Jordan Morgan in at left tackle, which, man, I would love, like, if Jordan Morgan's able to play left tackle, but he couldn't stay on the practice field all of last year, let alone play tackle. He couldn't even do guard. So, sorry, it's a little much. It's a little bit of a leap for me, at least on March 11th, 2025, to say he could be the starting left tackle anytime soon. But I do think this signing of Aaron Banks is a schematic precursor and a philosophical precursor. I also think it's a very literal and real alignment precursor, in that Elton Jenkins is going to move over to center, but I don't think that that'll be the end of the adjustments and the tweaks and the changes that the Packers will be making on their O-line this offseason. And I think this is just the first move that's going to lead to ABC, XYZ, 1, 2, 3. And that's why maybe it's a little unfair at this moment in time to put a grade and a definitive evaluation together for this selection or this signing, because I think it's more about where the Packers will go from here. And I'm curious to see where they go from here, what their plan is at O-line. If you have thoughts on any of this, maybe some more reasonable takes on yesterday's signings. We can talk Brewers Cubs as well. That game in action right now. The Brewers are up 5-1, couple home runs they've hit today. That's been really fun to watch. And I have a little comment, a little quip from Craig Counsell, who is on the Marquee broadcast, and I cut that audio right before the break. So all of that and your phone calls coming up next, 608-321-1670.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Catching situation. I mean, you seem to be in pretty good shape here with Kelly and Amaya. How do you envision that playing out in terms of the playing time?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of going into it looking at it as like a 50-50 job share, and then if somebody takes control of it, so be it.
Shot out the left field. Ian Happ goes back, and that ball's out of the berm and gone. Ball just carrying out the left. Jake Bowers, Apotaka. 2-run shot. Brewers add to their lead. Here in the third. That's tough.
Yeah, this is a spring training day with difficult day to pitch. See the flags here. They're blowing briskly out.
Oh, the flags. I see. That's Craig Counsell. That's the marquee broadcast. It happened right before the show started, and they had Craig Counsell on the broadcast, he on the headset in the dugout. So I wanted to get the Jake Bowers highlight, and well, if Craig Counsell is going to make a comment on it, I'm not going to edit that out. That's audio that I want on the show. Never will there be a fan base or an organization or a ballpark that talks about wind and it's coming in, it's going out. Like Cubs fans, they've convinced themselves, and maybe this is fact, but I'm still going to give them crap for it. It's like, well, last year, just a brutal year for hitters. The wind at Wrigley, we've never seen anything like it. It was blowing in every single day,
See the flags here. They're blowing briskly out.
Hear that sign hear that at the end, that sigh.
Out.
Now, of course, what Cubs fans conveniently fail to mention is that because the wind was blowing in seemingly every home game at Wrigley last year, that also benefited the Cubs pitchers. They're going to remain excellent this year. That much isn't changing, but of course the hitting should rebound. I actually think it will, but it's the Cubs, so I'm going to be difficult and obtuse. Your phone calls, whether it be about the Packers free agents, what the Brewers have going on in Maryville today. Brandon Woodruff also hit some nice velocity. I saw some 93s, so he's progressing nicely. I don't know where he ends up, but I think the headline with Brandon Woodruff right now, at the very least, is he has not suffered, knock on wood, a setback. So nice to see him progress. That's a topic that we could cover tonight as well. 608-321-1670. Let's take our first call. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant. It's Clement Mike.
Clement, good afternoon. It's beautiful outside. How are you today?
Oh, great. I missed all Bill's show then. I just got here a little late for yours, but you had me laughing out loud when you were talking about the wind. Grant, I've been watching the Cubs on and off since the 60s. It's true. Everything you said about the wind, it's absolutely true. So it's very wise and mature of you to pick up on that.
Well, it's fair, it's accurate, but because it's the Cubs, I'm going to make
See the flags here. They're blowing briskly out.
I'm going to bring it up only because it's the Cubs.
Yeah, I know. But I was thinking about what you're talking about with Banks, the new pickup on the offensive line.
Yeah.
With Josh Myers gone, he's gone now. Maybe Jordan Morgan is not progressing like they thought he was going to. Maybe his shoulder isn't healing. Maybe it's just not that good. And a general manager can't just think of this season. Everybody always focuses on this year. He's got to think of next year and the year after. And general managers have a lot to think about. That's why I turned down the job as Packers general manager. I couldn't handle it.
Too much stress. Yeah, right.
Yeah. I'm happy being retired. So anyway, I just wonder if it was not a panic move, but I think it was a move they just felt they had to make now because they decided, we can't let this offensive line get worse. It's a very good offensive line, and I agreed with everything you said yesterday about the offensive line being a strong point in this team, but it's a strong point of the team. You don't all of a sudden, like later on this year, you're saying, oh, crap, our strong points are weak points. So yeah. I think it was a wise move, actually, on the Packers' part. You can never have a strong enough offensive line. And like I said, maybe Morgan's not progressing. And Vince Lombardi always said that you win the game in the trenches. So, I don't have anything. I don't see anything wrong with this move. But if the Packers in the draft take the best offensive lineman in the universe with their first pick, I'm okay with it. So I know we need more on the defensive line and the defensive backfield depth, but I'm okay at this move. And I think it was actually Ed Gerard when he called. He said, "Did you see last year this Banks guy was driving our defensive lineman 10 feet into the defensive backfield? So maybe this guy's a blessing in disguise." So I don't want any of the armchair GMs out there making all these decisions for us. I think Goody knows what the heck he's doing. He's done this before, and maybe the offensive line, and there are guys going to be leaving next year. So he's thinking of the future too, not just this year.
You want guys in the system always because guys will go or you need to make contract decisions. Clemhead, that's an excellent call. And I think your point about Jordan Morgan is a good one. I think you can look at it a multitude of different ways. And this is kind of why this signing is fun. Now that we're removed from the emotional reaction of it all yesterday, the Aaron Banks signing is very, very interesting because you can kind of frame it or use this signing as a means to hit on other things, right? You could say, as Clem had said, well, maybe Jordan Morgan's not progressing. And they realized, oh man, we spent a first-round pick on the line last year, but he's not good enough. We don't believe in him. So we got to go make a signing. Or you can make a completely different case that Jordan Morgan is actually so impressive and they're so excited about him that they drafted another guard. So now they can jettison Rasheed Walker either via trade this offseason or maybe they let him go after this season, and they feel comfortable enough now not using Jordan Morgan at guard because we get that covered. We're going to kick him out to tackle, right? You can view this signing and what this signing will lead to. I was calling this a precursor signing in the opening segment because I think it's a precursor to probably schematic and some philosophical changes. But it's also probably going to lead to realignment on the offensive line directly, Banks moving Myers over to center, but also where does Jordan Morgan fall and where do they feel about Rasheed Walker, who's going to need a new contract, but they're already probably getting ready to extend Zach Tom, right? This is a fun signing, if for no other reason that we can spend hours on Sports Talk Radio picking apart and debating what it means and what's going to come next. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant. In
Hey,
rainy Los Angeles, experiencing an atmospheric river is what they're calling it.
Interesting. Well, they need the rain. I mean, my God, I wouldn't want to be there when it's raining. Like, I'd be bummed if I was visiting Los Angeles and it started raining because I'm supposed to get 75 and sunny every day, but good for them. I like to hear that.
Yeah, last time I was here, it was the wildfires, and now it's an atmospheric river. I mean, like, big weather is happy. I don't know why it's called an atmospheric river. It's drizzling out. That's what it is. But anyway, I was thinking a lot more about this signing and kind of back to Goody's comments a couple weeks ago about like, well, do we want a first round pick that's a cheap and controllable contract, or do we want to pay a veteran? Isn't this signing kind of contradicting that? Like they drafted a guard in the first round last year, and now they're signing one to a big deal, what it seems like. So I think if I'm Gutekunst, I just need to stop talking to the media.
Well, that's probably part of it too. And I keep hammering those comments home where he's like, we got to up our sense of urgency and it's time to compete for championships, right? Like he probably shouldn't have said that because now we can hold that against him. I think what he probably meant is everyone in the organization, coaches, players need to focus and realize that this coming year is when we need to get serious, right? I don't know that he meant from a player personnel standpoint, but that's how we heard it, and that's how we're going to apply it. So you're right. If GMs just never talk, that would probably be best for them. But I'm glad they do because it makes content for us.
Yeah, it's a lot more fun that way. And you also, I thought I was calling into the Grant Schneidman show, the way you're walking back your strong takes from yesterday.
I regret nothing from yesterday. Look, do you want me to complain about this signing for the next 2 or 3 months? Or do you want to try to figure out what the Packers are going for, try to see it from their point of view? Yeah, look, yesterday, that's some of my favorite radio to do. And I got more than one tweet. It's like, everyone needs to calm down. Everyone's coming on too strong, too emotional. No. Quite the contrary. That's why Sports Talk Radio is great, is it's live reaction to what's going on. But now as we get further removed from the thing, it's like, okay, let's try to see it the Packers way. If that makes me Matt Schneidman, I don't know. I guess I'm in good company. He's a very successful football reporter.
Yeah, no comment on that.
Okay, sure, yeah. Wait, are you going to be in, say what you were going to say, and then I'll ask my question before I let you go.
I was just going to say, John Blackwell snubbed, honorable mention. That's a bunch of malarkey.
So this is what I was going to actually ask you about, and I'm glad that you brought it up. Where should he have been? What did Badgers fans expect, I guess? I don't know. I saw the teams come out, and I saw he was honorable mention. I'm like, well, I guess I didn't really have an expectation other than Tanjay being first team, which he was.
I was thinking second team, like hoping for second team, would have settled for third team. Honorable mention is a slap in the face to the Wisconsin basketball program, in my opinion.
It is a little surprising, and I can give you some of the selections here. I appreciate your call, Cone. So the third team was Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, two of the guards, Jacka Eunice, or whatever his name is, from Illinois. I guess my only problem with some of the players who made it before him is, and I don't watch all these teams as closely as the Badgers, obviously, so I'm talking out of my butt a little bit, but I don't know that, especially those two freshmen from Rutgers, they dealt with injuries, they dealt with inconsistencies, same with Jaka Ioannis or KJ from Illinois, that kid, that guy. Blackwell, a little bit more consistent, a little bit more available, which he should be. He's a year older than those guys, right? But 15.5 points, over 5 boards, 46% from the field. Tough luck to be honorable mention. I'm glad he got honorable mention. Probably not helped by the fact that he's playing out of position a little bit, and certainly not helped, although the team has been helped, but Blackwell himself selfishly has not been helped by Tanjay coming in and exploding, because I think, and I brought this up, I think Blackwell's in a little bit of a tough spot from time to time, in that he's got to figure out how to get his, but he's also a little bit ball dominant in that he's got to put his head down and drive and take tough contested twos. And he can be a little bit of a ball stopper, which isn't a bad thing, but it's a challenge when he's the number 2 guy, or on some nights, depending on how Steven Crowell is playing and depending on the matchup, he can be number 3, right? So Blackwell can go through these long stretches where he feels like he's uninvolved. And then he probably feels like, okay, the expectation is I need to put my stamp on this game as well. So then he can start to press. So he's playing out of position. He's playing second or third fiddle as a ball dominant guard, which can be a little bit difficult. I think in a different setting, Blackwell would probably be a little bit more celebrated. I do look at some of the guys, especially on the third team, and it's like, okay, there's some names there and some guys who have NBA prospects and some real star power and some real flash, but have they had the same consistent level of performance throughout the season? I would argue no, but I'm also probably not the best person to ask, because I'm not watching Rutgers every night and I'm not watching Illinois or Oregon every night. I'm mostly focused on the Badgers. 608-321-1670. I will get to some of your texts and more of your calls when we come back, and a couple more thoughts on these Packers free agent signings before maybe we talk Brewers for a couple of minutes. A lot more of the Wisco Sports Show coming up.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
It's the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. Oliver Dunn has hit a home run. Wind really blowing out at Sloan today, where the Cubs play. Are they in Mesa? I believe they're in Mesa, which is why I had to cut that Craig Counsell sound from a highlight that I caught just before the show started. The wind's blowing out, folks.
See the flags here. They're blowing briskly out. Briskly out.
It's always about the wind with this team. Doesn't matter if they're at Wrigley or they're down in Arizona. It's the wind. It's always the wind. And it is windy. The wind's blowing out. But Cubs fans, they do bring up the wind more than any other. And I'm not even saying it's not fair. It's the windy city. So wind does play a big role. But it's the Cubs. So screw them. I'm going to bring it up and I'm going to make fun of you guys.
See the flags here. They're blowing briskly out.
Briskly out. Not just blowing out, but briskly out.
Briskly out.
Couple of texts. 608-321-1670. Alan O'Clair with a Vikings-related text. Al, I'm actually going to put a pin in that. We're going to talk about that during the next segment because I sent some texts and did some digging about maybe what the Vikings are thinking because Mike Silver had a very interesting report today regarding the Vikings. I'm like, what does that mean? So I sent some texts. Got some information for you coming up on maybe where the Vikings stand with their quarterback, especially considering they passed on Sam Darnold. And a lot of people are like, Rodgers, and they don't seem to have a lot of interest there. So we'll talk about that to end the hour. So hold on, Al. I'll get to that. Anonymous Pete, 608-321-1670. Text in, Grant, can we get your first win-loss through the Packers schedule? Which games in this moment are you confident in? Will be fun to see how it changes through draft season. I'm probably not going to do that. It's just not productive. We can do that at a different time. I see what you're saying. It's like, let's do it now, and then let's do it again, and we can see how it changes. It's all just such a crapshoot. I know you think that would be interesting and maybe productive. I'm telling you it wouldn't be because I'm not smart enough to actually make good picks at any moment in time, let alone in March. Alan O'Clair says, although we know Elton Jenkins can play center, we've heard Zach Tom's best position might be center. Could we actually see Tom move to center? If so, who would we expect move to right tackle? No, it's been reported by multiple Packers people, Elton Jenkins is going to move to center. And this came up on Bill's show earlier today too, where it's like, well, maybe they move Tom to center. Maybe, except all of the Packers people are reporting that that's not what's going to happen. I also have a hard time believing that Zach Tom's best position is center. And even if it is, he's an outstanding tackle. So why would I take a guy who excels at a very, very valuable position to move him to a much less valuable position, even if he's better at it? You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to think of an analogy that would make sense, and I'm coming up short, so I'm not even going to bother. Tom from Oak Creek says, I wonder if the Banks signing at guard is an overreaction to the Eagles playoff game where Jenkins got hurt and left guard turned into a turnstile. Glover and Telford were brutal, so clearly they lack depth there, and maybe they don't like the interior O-line class of this draft. All of that could be true, totally. It is a little bit of a theme in Packers playoff losses, in the LaFleur era at least, that one O-lineman goes down, and then without a doubt, they replace that injured O-lineman with the wrong guy. Always. Injuries happen. You know what I mean? Like, okay, backups are important. Sure. My question is, like, what's Jordan Morgan for? What's Jacob Monk for? They've drafted guys, and these guys have impressed, at least in limited action in camp or in the preseason. I don't think you can say, well, our left guard got hurt in a playoff game, so now let's go spend, X number of dollars on a backup guard. I don't think it's that simple. I think this move is a precursor, as I've said in the first two segments, schematically, because they want to lean more into a more physical, less zone-oriented run scheme. And maybe this is the tip of that spear. And I think it's an alignment precursor. They kick Elton Jenkins over, but I don't think they're done. They're going to pay Zach Tom. I'm pretty confident in that. And he's going to be a right tackle for a while. I'm not convinced on Rasheed Walker. So if not this year, then next year they'll need a new left tackle. Maybe they view Jordan Morgan as that guy, and therefore they were taking care of guard with free agency because they're no longer slotting Jordan Morgan in to be a guard. They want to play him at tackle, which, okay, I mean, that'd be great if he could do that. We just haven't really seen him practice or play yet because he's been injured. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hi, this is Kevin from Central Wisconsin.
Hey, Kevin, what's going on?
You're a big defender. You know, I got to defend my buddy Grant.
Yeah, you defend me on the morning show. Mike and Portage needs to chill, okay? Mike and Portage calls in, makes great points. We have a very productive call, and then I move on to the next caller, and what does he do? 6:05 the next morning, he calls Ebo to complain. Like, what did I do to deserve that? I don't get it.
You don't need to be on the phone for 20 minutes with you, Grant. You can get your point across and move on. That's what this sports talk is about. Give your point and then move on, right?
I like that. No, I agree. That's what it should be, especially on a busier day. Today we got more time. But, you know, if Mike and Portage were to call on a night like tonight, you'd probably get a little bit more time. That's how it goes.
Well, you know, you guys have been talking all day with Bill Shore, and you're kind of talking about with everything going on with these free agents, and you know, it's just the start of free agency, and there's going to be more to come, and obviously there's going to be teams that are going to be making their cuts in June 1st, and you know, maybe we'll get lucky and get that number one receiver, or maybe it was the number two receiver on one team. It could be number one on our team. I guess I'm not really over mad at Gutekunst right now, and what he's done in the free agent market. I mean, I think it was a good move to get that guard because, like you said, you don't know where Jordan Morgan's going to be. Yeah. And I don't think they're going to trade Walker. I just, not knowing how Jordan's shoulder is going to hold up after surgery, you know, and, you know, they talk, like Bill said, they talk about the short arms, if he's going to be able to handle that. I think Walker, they might just let him go, you know.
They might
finish out the contract and let him go next year, or maybe give him some more money, you know, extend him maybe a couple more years this year.
Maybe. And they've done that in the past. Like, I was listening to Locked On Packers earlier today because I listened to Annie Herman yesterday, and I'm like, okay, let's see what Pekowski had to say today. I'm just trying to, you know, collect and get information and opinions. And Pete's like, look, they've paid two tackles before. They were paying Bulaga and Bakhtiari at the same time on differing extensions. But those guys were also probably a little bit better than Zach Tom and Rasheed Walker. You know what I mean?
Well, I get it. But I mean, I do like Walker out there. I mean, granted, he has his moments, just like everybody else does. But I'm still wondering on that pick with Jordan Morgan, if that was, I mean, to me, it was a wasted pick, especially to me after seeing, I mean, you would have never known. Maybe it was the system that Cooper DeJean is in, if he would have been the same way with Green Bay. But with him sitting there and you take Jordan Morgan, it's almost like a Tony Mandrich thing all over again sometimes with that pick, you know.
Sure. And I think for that analogy to come through, and Kevin, I appreciate it. I love chatting either on the morning show or on this show. For that analogy to ring true, you know, Cooper DeJean needs to be Deion Sanders. And look, it's convenient for sports talk radio that Cooper DeJean had a pick six in the Super Bowl, because now we can look back at that draft pick and there's extra, you know, angst from Packers fans. Cooper DeJean had a great season, or a very good season after a slow start. Jordan Morgan was hurt. It's not like the Packers picked a total bum and the Eagles picked a Hall of Famer, right? It's an easy cherry pick conversation that I use often because that's what sports talk radio is. I still think Jordan Morgan will probably be a good player. And as I said, when they took him last year, it's like, I feel better about the O-line room knowing that they threw a guy in there with legitimate blue chip traits. You know what I mean? Like, I love getting by with 5th and 6th and 3rd and 4th round picks, those guys. But every once in a while, you just need to throw a blue chipper into the mix too. I think that really, really helps establish your room and gives you a little bit more certainty, right? You're not relying on guys who were taken near the bottom of the draft, which is great. So I am not out on Jordan Morgan by any means. I understand Packers fans' frustrations because he basically redshirted, but also, how's that the Packers' problem? He got hurt. You know what I mean? So I see a lot of comments on the live stream. It's like, well, would you rather pay this money for Aaron Banks or Josh Myers? These things aren't necessarily connected. You know what I mean? I've seen some people say, well, they're paying this player so they ultimately don't have to pay Rasheed Walker. It's like, oh, so overpaying for a guard to avoid overpaying for a tackle, which is a markedly more important position. Like, I don't think that's the strategy that you think it is. We're trying to make all of this make sense. And I think, especially for the talk show, this is why this signing is so fun, is we can use it as a vehicle to make this point, or to say that they're in or out on this player, or that this guy is going to be moved here, or this guy's going to be traded, which is why it's fun. The corner that they signed, Nate Hobbs, a little bit more straightforward. Depth piece, the chess piece for Jeff Hafley to move around week by week. But this O-line situation, I think it's going to get more interesting as the offseason goes along. And I'm unsure of the future of Rasheed Walker. I'm sure that they're going to extend Zach Tom. I'm not really sure of anything else across the O-line right now, which is an interesting spot to be. We can kick around possibilities and really throw opinions around. And that's what Sports Talk Radio is. It's fun. Let's take a 3-minute break. I want to talk about the Vikings quarterback situation next. They didn't want Sam Darnold. They seemingly don't want Aaron Rodgers. Daniel Jones, who was there last year, signed with the Colts. So what's going on up in Minneapolis? We'll discuss next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
The Wisco Sports Show. I got a comment and a little information to pass along regarding the Minnesota Vikings and their quarterback decision. Shout out to our sponsor up on Sports Talk 105.1 in Eau Claire, Kai Chevytown in Menominee. right off of exit 41, the north side of Menominee. You turn off the interstate, it's right there. In fact, you might be able to see it from the interstate. I'm not 100% sure, but it is right there. If you can see over the Motel 6, I'm not exactly sure. It's right there. It's a short drive from anywhere. And even if you're not looking for a vehicle right now, and you can see their selection, it's updated daily, new and used, and even leasing options as well. ChevyTownUSA.com, their inventory is updated daily. But if you're not looking for a new car, I'm someone who's like, I want to get a quality car. I'm going to take care of it. I'm not overly obsessed with how new and fancy my car is. I want that thing to last me. So take good care of it. Their service department is award-winning. They've been taking care of folks and their vehicles in Northwest Wisconsin for 3 generations. They have 18 service bays. They do spray and bed liners right on site. So if you're looking at making some upgrades to your truck or the back of your truck, at least this summer, stop in. They can take care of that for you on site. They're also hiring service technicians. So if that's something that interests you, you can apply today. You can give them a call or go online, ChevyTownUSA.com. They have an employment link that's open so you can learn more full-time benefits, 401k, and health and dental and vacation holidays. Sounds like an awesome job. And that's why they attract the best people, and that's why their service department is as good as it is. I can't recommend it enough. BYC Kais for the best buys. Again, everything online at ChevyTownUSA.com. Mike Silver had a very curious tweet earlier. Mike Silver, who's friend of network, sadly not friend of show. He's been on with Bill a couple of times. I have not been able to have him on. Big Dead guy, big fan of Mike Silver. He's not been on the show. But he tweeted earlier today, and I bookmarked it. This is after Daniel Jones signed with Indy. And a lot of people thought, well, the Vikings will let Sam Darnold go. That didn't totally surprise me, although I wouldn't have been shocked if they had retained Darnold either. But not surprised that they let him go, and he got a big deal in Seattle. Good for him. I thought that then they would get this year's version of Sam Darnold, who I thought was Daniel Jones. And Daniel Jones signed with Indy. So the Vikings are proceeding full steam ahead with J.J. McCarthy as the presumed Week 1 starter. Mike Silver tweeted this today. This is at 11:48 a.m. In the Vikings organization, Kevin O'Connell's opinion carries the most weight when it comes to quarterback decisions. There are some very interesting conversations taking place right now. I saw that and I read that as, well, J.J. McCarthy's probably going to be the Week 1 starter, but Kevin O'Connell carries a lot of power, and he might not be satisfied with just J.J. McCarthy. That's how I read it. Is that fair? Seems very reasonable. So I asked around to some Vikings people. I was like, what's this? What's going on? And from more than one person, I got some version of, well, we've heard that Aaron Rodgers actually really would love to come play for the Vikings. It really interests him. The Vikings don't really have any interest. And Mike Silver, who's been a Rodgers guy all the way back to Cal, and other insiders or newsbreakers or reporters like him have mostly been manufacturing Rodgers to the Vikings buzz. And it's not difficult buzz to manufacture because he already went to the Jets. He followed part 1 of the Favre track. Why wouldn't he then complete it? So we can joke about it. You should go to the Vikings. They need a quarterback, right? But they have the weapons. They have the line. They have the coach. They have a defense at least that's good enough and that has played at a really high level, and everyone likes Flores. I was surprised to learn from a couple different people in the know that, like, actually Rodgers is really interested in the idea of coming to Minnesota, which I kind of discounted. I didn't think Rodgers would want to do that. But from what I was told, again, by multiple people today, it's like, actually Rodgers is really hot on that idea. It's the Vikings that are kind of out, which doesn't surprise me. I think the Vikings are smarter than that. I also thought they'd have someone other than J.J. McCarthy as an insurance policy, if nothing else, and that hasn't happened. So that's where we stand with the Vikings as of right now. And if you notice Mike Silver's report earlier today and look sideways at it, well, there's some further clarification. Let's get to hour number 2, a quick update from Zach Heilprin. We can talk more about what the Packers have done, what's going on around the league, and the Brewers are playing right now. I can give you a couple Brewers thoughts on the other side of this break as well. First, an update from Zach Heilprin. 2 minutes, no commercials.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, it's day 2 of the NFL free agency negotiating period. Yesterday, Packers added a pair of players in 49ers guard Aaron Banks and Raiders quarterback Nate Hobbs. Banks deal reportedly 4 years, $77 million. Hobbs deal 4 years, $48 million. For Hobbs, he reconnects with several former teammates that were on the Raiders before, including Josh Jacobs and Keyshawn Nixon. But perhaps the biggest connection for Hobbs is special teams coach and assistant head coach Rich Bisaccia, who was with the Raiders for the first 2 years of Hobbs' career.
I shed a tear when I found out he was leaving because that was the first man other than my uncle. I felt like I had that father-son bond in some way. I'm not going to say like a male role model in my life I didn't have for a long time. He was like the only coach I ever let cuss me out, hug me 10 minutes later, wants the best for me.
The deals Banks and Hobbs agreed to are eligible to be signed tomorrow when the new league year officially opens. Turning to Wisconsin, they released their spring roster yesterday, and it does not include tight end Robert Booker. He was a 3-star recruit in 2024 out of Wanakee, but has medically retired from football. The Badgers open spring ball on Thursday.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
When a company only does business in Wisconsin, that's Wisconsin Strong. Rural Mutual provides all lines of insurance, including home and auto. And your premiums stay right here to keep Wisconsin strong. Local agents, local underwriters, local claims adjusters.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, Wisconsin's John Tonje was named first team All-Big Ten when the conference announced its awards this morning. First Badger player named first team since Johnny Davis 3 years ago. John Blackwell, a consensus honorable mention pick. Badgers going to face Minnesota or Northwestern on Thursday in the Big Ten tournament. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil.
Catching situation. I mean, you seem to be in pretty good shape here with Kelly and Amaya. How do you envision that playing out in terms of the playing time?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of going into it looking at it as like a 50-50 job share, and then if somebody takes control of it, so be it.
Shot out the left field. Ian Happ goes back, and that ball's out of the berm and gone. Ball just carrying out to left. Jake Bowers, Apotaka. 2-run shot. Brewers add to their lead. Here in the third. That's tough.
Yeah, this is a spring training day with difficult day to pitch. If you see the flags here, they're blowing briskly out.
I feel like we're under the radar every year, which is fine. You know, it's been their postseason 6 of the last 7 years, and you're under the radar. Every year, though. It's your guys' fault, probably.
I blame us.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Some fun audio from Craig Counsell about an hour ago. This game is a rodeo. The wind is blowing out. The ball is carrying Reese Hoskins, Vinny Capra, Oliver Dunn, all homering today. High scoring. I think it's 8-7 or 8-6 or something right now. I don't know. I have the game on next to me. You don't need the exact score. It's a spring training game, but some fun audio of Craig Counsell saying, yeah, the wind's blowing out. It's like, God, you just sound like a wet towel constantly. And I'd say wet blanket, but you're never forced to sleep with a wet blanket. You can always say, oh, that blanket's wet. I'm not going to use it. A wet towel, if you're getting out of the shower, there's one towel on the hook and it's wet. You have to use it. You have no choice. You need to dry off, right? I'll just sleep without a blanket before I sleep with a wet blanket. I need to dry myself off. So that's why I say Craig Counsell sounds like a wet towel when he says this.
See the flags here. They're blowing briskly out.
It's the Wisco Sports Show, hour number 2. If you have thoughts on the Brewers, the Packers, could talk a little Badgers basketball as well. Some of the all Big Ten teams, like I don't really understand. Why does Oregon have 2 all defensive selections? And the cat from Penn State, he's not even a good defender. Like, who's voting on this stuff? I don't really get it. And I'm far from an expert, and I'm smart enough. I'm in the know enough to look at some of these selections. I'm like, okay, John Blackwell is honorable mention. John Blackwell, not the most efficient cat in the world. I get it. He's not a perfect player, but honorable mention seems a little bit low. Maybe he could be third team. But then again, what are we doing? We're splitting hairs. Well, you should, a total insult to be honorable mention. He should be third team. Okay, well, they're not that far off. Maybe I shouldn't completely lose my mind over
See the flags here. They're blowing briskly out.
A little bit of an announcement for our Madison audience. We don't normally do stuff like this. I do live broadcasts in Eau Claire, got a couple in La Crosse coming up between the months of April and May. But come this Friday night, I am going to be at the Double Tap down on State Street, I believe it is. I believe it's down on State, or it's right down in the thick of things. If it's not directly on State, it might be around a corner. You get my point. I'll be down there broadcasting live from 4 to 6 doing the show. Ebo's going to be there. Intern Kate's going to be there as well. And we're going to be giving away passes for March Madness, the games in Milwaukee. So from what I talked about with Ebo, and I swear to God, I went over this like 3 different times to make sure I'm not promoting something that we're not actually giving out. These tickets, these passes that we're giving out, will get you into the whole thing, the whole weekend. That's an unbelievable value. Like, that is insane, especially if Wisconsin ends up there. Those tickets are going to be like, you think the Kohl's Center on Senior Day, paying $200 to sit in the nosebleeds, you think that's expensive. So we're giving away tickets and, of course, having some drinks, playing some games, having a good time. So for our Madison listening audience, come down. Ebo will be there. I will be there. Kate will be there. And I think we're going to be there till 8. It's not just the show. I'll be doing the show there 4 to 6, but we'll be there even later into the night. So if you're not off work until 5:15 and you got to come from Sun Prairie or wherever, you'll have plenty of time to get down there. So come down on Friday night. It'll be a blast and a half, broadcasting live, playing some games and having a good time. And it's fun to do a broadcast with Ebo as well. Zach gets that privilege often, every Thursday, in fact. Thorson and Heilprin, Monks and Sun Prairie. But Friday night should be fun, and we'll have plenty to give away for March Madness tickets. The game's coming up in Milwaukee. We got loaded phone lines, so let's get right to it. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Not just Ebo, not just Grant, but if you come Friday night, you will have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get a pinball lesson from Vagabond.
I was going to say, you'll probably be there playing pinball.
Yeah, Star Wars is there. That is A, one of the most complex pinball machines out there, and B, my absolute favorite. So I've been banned on playing that game in tournaments. I will be smacking the balls on that machine Friday night.
I'm looking forward to that. And I like a lot of times, we've done some broadcasts in La Crosse over the last year, a couple in Eau Claire. I don't really get a chance to get out in Madison and do a whole lot of stuff. So this should be fun. We can get the over the line crowd, hopefully from the morning, and some listeners to the Double Tap on Friday night. It should be fun. And I'll see you there, Vagabond.
I've already got one couch surfer solidified. So if you're coming from out of town, need a place to stay, hit me up.
Who's surfing on your
my
couch?
House is basically Z in the D. So I had to confirm because both couches are a little short, for guys our size, Grant. But no problem at all for Z in the D. He'll fit right on there.
None. All right. Well, I'll look forward to seeing Z on Friday night too. All right. What did you call in to discuss before I brought up pinball conveniently right before I brought you on?
Well, it's perfect. Hey. Have we talked about the big Badger news today? Huge.
The wide receiver that they signed?
News. Major, right? Big time talent out of Indiana, beat Michigan State, signed a 3-star receiver. People are going crazy. The bat signal, all the hype is out there. Grant, I couldn't be more out on the bat signal that's going on, especially for guys like this.
Yeah.
Like in the middle of the afternoon, I'm seeing Twitter just blow up, and I'm like, oh, this must be big. And on the same day where USC has like 3 or 4 4-star guys get crystal ball to them, we got this 3-star receiver out of Indiana that had like Vanderbilt, Michigan State, and Indiana offering. So way to go, Luke Bickle. You got your second recruit. You've caught up to Greg Gard on the 2026 recruiting trail, and I look forward to seeing what the rest brings. So there's my wet blanket of the day.
You're a real prick, but I don't disagree. I saw a lot of people. Well, and I appreciate it, Vagabond. I saw Nick Osen and others like, huge news. I'm like, holy balls, they got someone great. And I'm looking at the player profile. I'm like, oh, a 3-star. Okay. Not to poo-poo a 3-star, right? Unrecruited or unscholarship, non-scholarship guys can go on to be superstars, Hall of Famers, and 5-stars can flop out, of course. But everyone on Badgers Twitter and a lot of these reporters are like, huge get for Wisconsin. Who'd they beat out? Indiana State or Illinois State and Michigan State. Okay. I don't mean to poo-poo, but I kind of side with Vagabond John on this one. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, it's Uncle Packer.
Uncle Packer, hello.
Hey, I got kind of I'm trying to make the best out of a bad situation. I'm a little poo-pooed, like you just said, about the lack of, Packers drafted or taken in the free agency. But I was reading about this guard, and I'm thinking now what they're trying to do is maybe get a little stronger on the tush push. This is a big, tall, lanky, guard. And I've been watching a lot of football, and they got kind of a tendency to have big, powerful guards up there. So I think it might be an answer to that. And you can never go wrong investing in your offensive line.
No. I think the Packers could maybe have used their resources a little bit more efficiently, but big picture, I don't think you can ever criticize a general manager for addressing the line, the offensive line, because we're the first people to line up and rip a GM when they don't add to the offensive line. So I'll be fair to Brian Gutekunst there. And I think you're absolutely right. I don't know if it's tush-push specific, but this is marking, I think this offseason in particular will mark a little bit of a schematic change in the way they want to run the ball and the types of bodies maybe they're looking for, especially in the interior of their line. Maybe less zone running schemes, more duo, more power, more up under center, hard play action, that kind of thing, because that's something they got away from a little bit last season.
Yeah, I hope this is just to upgrade their offensive line. I'm hoping wouldn't it be a nice surprise if they picked up Floyd out of the 49ers?
They could.
That would kind of save it to me.
I don't really have a good gauge on what the league thinks of Leonard Floyd and how good he still is. He seems to be quite the journeyman the last couple of years, but at least a couple of times a year when I'm watching a game, when he's on the field or when I'm watching highlights, like, oh yeah, there's Leonard Floyd. He's still making a play here and there. I don't know how valuable that'll turn out being to his next team. We'll have to see.
What about, did Cooper Kupp, did he get signed?
He's still out there.
I'd be happy with Cooper Kupp too. It would be something yet. There's still some players to fall. I hope we do something.
And Cooper Kupp might be, and I'm not sure, Uncle Packer, I appreciate your optimism always. I don't know if the Rams have technically released him yet, although it's happened where it happened with Christian Kirk just late last week, where teams say, we're releasing this guy. And then a day later, you learn, actually, we're trading him for a 7th round pick because we just said we were going to release him. And then a team called us and was like, come on, you don't want to release him. We'll give you a 7th. Right. So I'm not sure if Cooper Kupp has actually been officially released yet. The Rams have said, well, if no one trades for him, we'll release him. So I don't know where we are on that timeline, just like I'm not really sure where we are on the Jair timeline. Like, no one's trading for him, but no one was trading for Devontae Adams either. And the Jets were like, all right, fine, we'll just cut it. Like, they had zero patience for waiting for a trade suitor there. I don't know what the Packers' approach is and what their timeline is with Jair. All right, we got 2 more callers on hold. I'll get to you both, I promise. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, Tony from Texas.
Hey, Tony.
Can we poo-poo Craig Counsell? What a wet blanket. I love it. What a jerk.
A little bit. That's a good soundbite.
See the flags here. They're blowing briskly out.
Yeah, anytime we get to press Counsell audio, I'm going to cut it and play it on the show. Come on.
Oh, what a jackass. Hey, the Packer news, spring training in baseball, March Madness, and all the NFL news in general has made us overlook the Bucks just getting their asses kicked by the Cavs at home, and then Orlando the night before. So, Bucks, get your stuff together. People aren't watching. Better do better. Just get better.
The Bucks have been better since the deadline, and I think they're a better team and in a better position than they were. Of course, but then the reality of the Celtics, the Knicks, the Cavs, the Magic, and the Magic. They've beaten the Magic, but the Magic are a younger team that's on the rise. They're more physically gifted because they're younger. They're more athletic. Cleveland, much of the same. And I think Indiana to a degree as well. Like, that's a team that can run up and down the court better than you and play with more bounce. So tonight's game should be an interesting test as well, but they still haven't beaten.
And I do like that Kevin Porter.
Yeah, Kevin Porter's fine. Like, he's been a nice addition, but they still haven't beaten any of the teams atop the East even once.
Right. Couple of quick things. I know you're up against it.
Hey.
The Packers, that's on brand with what they did. And 2 questions that ended, Grant. You think Bisaccia has got too much power? And the second thing is, go ahead.
No. Say what you're going to say, because I almost forgot to bring this up tonight.
I'm going to time this better. Go ahead, answer that one.
Well, here's the thing. Everyone's talking about how this Nate Hobbs guy loves Bisaccia, views him as a mentor and a father figure, which is great. It's an awesome story. You would think that with all of the signings they've made, seemingly with Rich Bisaccia in mind, that Rich Bisaccia is like the greatest coach in the league. This to me is like if the Brewers made all these signs at the behest of Jason Lane. It's like, okay, it's nice that you're getting these guys, but we're like, Rich Bisaccia is probably the worst or the least thought of coach on the staff right now, at least between the 3 or 4 biggest ones.
Yeah, it's like when Jason Kidd was with the Bucks. He was hired, or they're getting all the players that was under his agency.
Yeah.
Management.
I don't want them.
Grant, off brand here, on brand, but off topic. I'm struggling with Lent, celibacy. You got to tell me, how did you deal with it throughout all those years? How did you do it, my man? Because I know you were able to power through. So
I was able to
leave it
power.
on that.
That's a good way to end the call. I was going to ask you how your Lent was going, Tony. It's one of my favorite things to do in just a group of people, at a dinner party, at a social gathering. Whenever there's a lull in the conversation this time of year, just be like, how's everyone's Lent going? They just completely take everyone off guard. I think it's very funny. It's even funnier if no one's Catholic. Just ask it. Very matter of fact. Make people answer it. It's funny. How did I do it for years, Tony? I hosted this show. This was all the fulfillment that I need, physical or spiritual or otherwise. That's how I did it. Also, very, very forward of you to assume that I was living that way for years and years and years. Not incorrect, but very forward. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant, it's Darnell.
Hey, Darnell. How's your Lent going?
My Lent is going great now.
Good.
I stayed celibate throughout my entire childhood, teens, and up through college. Not of my own choosing.
Yeah.
It was the other people's choosing.
Yep. Takes two to tango.
Yep, exactly. So, that'd be really easy for me if that was that was what I was giving up for Lent this
How
year.
did you do it?
How did I do it?
You didn't have a choice, I suppose. I guess I don't know how you answer that.
Yeah. I didn't pay anybody for it, so I wasn't going to do that. So yeah. And anyways, how funny is it now that people are saying, oh, now the Packers are going to do the tush push when they just tried to get the league to outlaw it like 2 weeks ago?
Well, you got to adapt, man. You got to adapt quickly. You know what I mean?
All I can think of right now is like you were meant to bring balance to the fourth. You were going to destroy the Sith.
Yeah.
Not join them. So.
Look, I like the Packers, like the Tucker Kraft using him. That's fun. That's interesting. That's way more entertaining than, hey, everyone come, stand in a pile here and push my ass with your head and we're going to fall forward for a yard. That's not interesting or engaged. That's not nothing. Get rid of that.
Well, they've perverted what the Packers created, which is the QB sneak.
That is true.
It's just a perverted Bart Starr QB sneak. It's terrible.
It's unnatural.
Yeah, let's get that out of the game. Get it out of the game.
Belongs in rugby in Europe and in Australia, not in the National Football League. And for all the people who are
America.
like, it's the purest form of the sport. No, it's not. Shut up. And if you believe that, go watch 8-Man. Go watch 8-Man football in southern rural Minnesota. There's plenty of it to be watched. Sorry, Minnesota.
Or rugby at UW Platteville, right?
Yeah, well, that's actually entertaining. You ever go watch club rugby at like the backfield at UW Stout? That's actually very entertaining.
Yeah. That was all I had. I just, when Uncle Packer was talking about, they're going to use it for the tush push, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy. But it's Anakin joining the Sith. That's what we're doing.
It would be too bad. I would hate to see that. Darnell, that's a good call. And congrats on, you're a father now. So I don't know when the celibacy ended, but it obviously ended, I would assume. Some level. I know there's workarounds, but I would assume. I'm not going to assume anything, Darnell. This is your private life, although you brought it to the air. Tony brought it to the air. I'm glad everyone's having a good Lent. Put it that way. I don't even know how to move on from that.
See the flags here. They're blowing briskly out.
I guess that'll work. 608-321-1670. I'll get to some of your texts. Some other signings and moves around the NFL. We can discuss that next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
The Wisco Sports Show. Some text coming in, 608-321-1670. Eau Claire Chris says, did this man just say tush push? This is the Packers. It's the love shove. This is another reason that I don't love the tush push. And this is not your fault, Eau Claire Chris. This is just the way that we've been conditioned. Is people on Get Up or fill in the blank, excuse me, hiccups for some reason, whatever sports talk show you want to use as an example, will waste time. Is it the tush push? Is it the brotherly shove? What about the cheek sneak? Like, not only is the play boring and ugly and it frustrates me and it's not football, like, also the naming is not that clever or funny. Like, ass puns, are we 6? Now, jokes about celibacy and Lent, those are funny. Obviously, that's highbrow humor. But ass puns, pass. No, thank you. Thank you for the text, though. Eau Claire Chris. Uncle Packer then follows up. The other thing is they're going to keep it, the tush push, they got to put a chip in the ball. I don't care about chips in the ball. I don't care about what we're naming the tush push. None of this interests me. Just call me when the play is booted, when they get rid of it. Sad news to pass along, and this broke earlier this afternoon, so you may have heard, but the Bucs just emailed a statement, so I guess I'll read it. Junior Bridgman passed away, and the Bucs, this is from their PR department. The Milwaukee Bucs are shocked and saddened by the tragic passing of legend and owner Junior Bridgman. His retired number 2 jersey hangs in the Fiserv Forum, serving as a constant remembrance of his outstanding play on the court and his impact on the Bucs' success. His hard work and perseverance led him to be one of the nation's top business leaders, and last September, Junior's professional life came full circle when he returned to the Bucs family as an owner. His memory will always be an inspiration to the Bucs organization. We are heartbroken by Junior's passing and send our deepest condolences to his wife, Doris, his children, Eden, Justin, and Ryan, his entire family, and all those close to him. Junior Bridgman became a heck of a businessman, like grew his NBA career into massive wealth. And as I see Doug Gottlieb and others now pointing out on Twitter, it's like anyone who comes into the NBA for any amount of time should learn the story of Junior Bridgman and how he handled his money and how he then, went on to live the rest of his life. Because so many of these players, so many, young people who make money, it comes in and it goes out just as quickly. You know what I mean? And the more you make, the more you spend. And all of a sudden, you're 5 years removed from your career and you're like, where did all my money go? So a side note to the main thing, which is the passing of Junior Bridgman, rest in peace. The Bucs sending out that email, but I also see that they posted the the statement on Twitter and their social media platforms as well. Rest in peace, 1953 to 2025. So that's sad. That's a bummer. 608-321-1670. I don't know how we get back into celibacy discussions and ass puns after that. Somber note.
See the flags here. They're blowing briskly out.
I guess that's one way to do it. Some other moves being made around the NFL. I can't help but look at the Bears and all the moves that they've made, and the Vikings adding to their O-line and their D-line. The Lions adding to their secondary, losing Carlton Davis, but replacing him on a better contract, DJ Reed, which I think that contract was maybe one of the more surprising ones the last couple of days. And the original numbers can be misleading, but they're not normally misleading on the low end. They're misleading on the high end. So it's not like DJ Reed's agent and representation is like, yeah, put out a small number. We don't mean to brag. Yeah, you do. As an agent, that's how you peacock. As a player, that's how you peacock. Look at the contract I got. Look at the deal that I got. You don't sell low. You don't publicize a low number. So that was one of the more surprising contracts, I think, of the last 24 or 48 hours. But the NFC North has been busy, especially adding in the trenches. And the Packers, right? They're adding in the trenches too. They added a guard. And I don't think he's Hall of Famer, elite level guard, but he's a solid player and will serve a role as a road grader and some extra girth. Packers have been looking for that apparently on the O-line. I think that signals a little bit of a change in the way they want to operate and maybe the types of players and the types of run fits they're looking to establish in year 3 moving forward with now Josh Jacobs and Jordan Love going into next season. Look, I just hope the Packers fully grasp and understand what they're up against. Right? I worry that they underestimate the work that Detroit has done. I worry that they underestimate what Minnesota has built. I worry that they don't fully grasp their situation. They are in an arms race. They are in an absolute arms race with multiple teams in their division who, let's be real, they're not really used to those guys like the Packers are not used to having to tangle with the Lions. They're not used to the Vikings being well run and competitive every single year. They're just not used to this. And I really think they need to get caught up and catch up and fully grasp what their situation and their place in this division currently is, which last year it was solidly the third best team, right? They were firmly entrenched as the third best team in their division. It's not like, well, if this, that, or that. No. They played the Vikings twice and were handled for the most part twice. They played the Lions twice. They were handled in the first game. They acquitted themselves nicely in the second game, but close but no cigar, right? I worry that the Packers don't fully grasp and aren't fully grasping their place in this division. And I'm worried that they're not operating with the requisite level of urgency and aggressiveness. This is Matt LaFleur. I went back and I listened to Matt LaFleur's end of the season presser earlier today because he talks about this idea, their role in their division and their games against Detroit and Minnesota and Philly and even Chicago, but Chicago wasn't thought of as an elite team last year. They could have easily lost to Chicago twice. And I've said, look, 1-1, those games should have been split last year. I just think the results were flipped. The Packers deserved to lose at Soldier Field. They probably should have won at home. They split the games, which is probably accurate. I just think the results were flipped. I think the Packers got lucky in Chicago. I think the Bears got lucky in Green Bay because Matt LaFleur's like, sure, let's just give the Bears 40 seconds to try to win the game because why not? It's not like as a head coach, I'm in charge of managing the clock. And, it's not like my assistant head coach, my associate head coach, Rich Bisaccia, is supposed to, communicate these things with me. This is Matt LaFleur from his end of the season presser. This is back in January. Asked hey, do you feel close in your division, in your conference?
I think right at the moment, you don't feel it. But again, I think, we won 11 games. I know it was good for third place in our division. It's one of those crazy years, man.
That comment, that part of that comment. And I remember talking about it at the time. This part.
It was good for third place in our division. It's one of those crazy years, man.
That I don't like that. That has me concerned.
It's one of those crazy years, man.
Do you guys understand the Detroit's a legit outfit. Like up in Green Bay, do you guys understand that Minnesota historically has been somewhat of a punchline because they've had some flops in the playoffs and Paul Allen calls the games. It's kind of funny, but like that's a legit outfit up in Minneapolis. They pour money into their facilities. Players love playing there. They got a great coach. I think their GM is super sharp. Like, do the Packers just expect the Vikings to go quietly? Do they expect the Lions to go quietly? Do they expect the Bears to never figure it out? I think at some point a blind squirrel finds a nut and the Bears figure this out. Maybe not this year, but probably at some point. I just don't like that comment. It's like, well, we won 11 games. It's good enough for third place. It's just, one of those crazy years.
I think, we won 11 games. I know it was good for third place in our division. It's one of those crazy years, man.
Was it that crazy of a year? You know what I mean? Like, think of divisions that have been elite in the past. The AFC North has had years where Steelers, Ravens, Bengals have all been good. Like, think back to the Marvin Lewis years, right? I don't think that Andy Dalton and the Bengals were as much of a force as probably the best Joe Burrow teams, but that was a real team with real players that had crazy games against the Steelers, who were a real team with real players, and the Ravens, a real team with real players. And at the end of the year, Marvin Lewis or John Harbaugh or Mike Tomlin didn't get to go to the podium and be like, well, we won a lot of games, but just one of those years.
We won 11 games. I know it was good for third place in our division. It's one of those crazy years, man.
But what if these teams just remain good? The Vikings invest, they care, they spend, they're well run. Hasn't amounted to Super Bowls over the years, but that's a legit outfit. The Lions are a legit outfit who have owned you now going back to the end of the Aaron Rodgers era now. And, some of those games in Aaron Rodgers last year, I hang that more on Rodgers than I did on LaFleur. It's like, can we not throw multiple red zone interceptions? Can you not dump your pants at home in a de facto playoff game at home in January? Again, at home against the Lions team that had nothing to play for. So the Lions have been eating your lunch for a couple of years now. The Vikings are well run and they invest. They give a crap. I don't know if it's just one of those crazy years. This division's just good. And every time the Packers make a move or don't make a move, or anytime that Matt LaFleur opens his mouth, I'm concerned that they don't really grasp that. You know what I mean?
Third place in our division. It's one of those crazy years, man.
608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant. It's Coyote Mike.
What's going on, Coyote Mike? How are you?
I'm in El Paso.
Oh, yeah, you're down south. You texted me or you emailed me that last night for the mailbag. How is it?
Yeah. It's a lot different than I expected. It's very big.
The city
really
itself is big? I mean, everything's bigger in Texas. They do
like
say that.
It's like 1.2 million people. The city proper is like 865,000.
That's disappointing because if I were to go to El Paso, I would want it to be these little, I would want to feel like I'm in a John Wayne movie. You know what I mean? With the little hitching post outside the bar, but there's probably big buildings and highways and
it's flat. All the houses are all pretty much single story. And I haven't seen a building yet that's maybe over 4 or 5 stories, and just maybe 1 or 2 of those.
Why are you in El Paso?
I'm helping my brother-in-law move some items for his brother's mother or somebody like that.
Well, that's a supportive family.
So from here, we're headed to San Antonio tomorrow to drop off the stuff we picked up. And then we'll head back to Colorado.
That's not a bad week for you.
Saturday. But
are you out for a walk? Or are you still walking down in El Paso the same way you would in Colorado?
I'm walking. I stopped because I'm walking into the wind, and it would be too distracted. So I just stuck behind a tree here. But it's beautiful weather. It's like 70 degrees and a nice breeze blowing. And
yeah, that's not too bad.
And the haze is coming in from the. But I agree with you on that comment from Matt LaFleur. That part especially said, well, it was kind of a crazy year. He's kind of just kind of shrugging it off, like, well, it's just the way it happens.
Yeah.
And I think Gutekunst knows what he's doing. And so I have faith in him. And I was disappointed that they didn't make a bigger splash with the free agency. I was lukewarm on Metcalf. I didn't really want to see him come into Green Bay. I understand that how he could have upgraded the offense and put a stamp of I don't know, maybe stardom. I don't know if you'd say on their offense, but I'm okay with with what they're doing right now. I'm just going to let it see how it shakes out. He might still have something up his sleeve. Goodikun, so we'll see what he does.
I do wonder if Trey Hendrickson is on the board for them at any point. You know what I mean?
I sure hope so.
I do too.
Wouldn't that would just give everybody just a list of hope, you know, like, hey, the Packers get it. You know, like you were saying, the other three teams in that division haven't sat on their hands, and they're getting better for sure.
And the Packers haven't been sitting on their hands. I appreciate it. Enjoy your time down in El Paso and then on to San Antonio. Is anybody going to San Antonio? I'm a little jealous, although it's pretty warm up here. I went for a walk yesterday over my lunch hour. I actually drove to New Glarus to pick something up for Bill this afternoon after his show. So it's been beautiful, but I've never been to El Paso. I'd like to go. San Antonio would be cool too. Probably that over Dallas-Fort Worth. Sorry, Tony. That doesn't really seem like my bag. The Packers have not been sitting on their hands, right? Let's make it very clear. I've heard some complaints from commenters and callers on Bill's show. It's like, well, all the other teams in the division are getting better. The Packers, I mean, they're just sitting back and, well, no, they're not. They signed 2 players yesterday, a corner who will really help them win, and a lineman who, you know, feel how you want about the contract or the use of resources, but that's a move. That's a legitimate move. So the Packers have not been sitting idly by. And there have also been people who's like, I was surprised the Packers actually spent money. Why? Why are you surprised at this point? Some of these free agent narratives that are spun about the Packers exist still in the world of 2015. It's like, this isn't Ted Thompson anymore. Every time that Goody's had money to spend, he spent it. Okay, so this shouldn't be surprising. How they spent their money, that's a different conversation, especially when the Vikings add to their defensive line. The Rams add to their defensive line. Everyone after the Eagles win the Super Bowl is like, well, that tell you all you need to know about building up the trenches. The Packers were already pretty good in the offensive trenches last year. They really lacked in the defensive trenches, at least from a pass rushing perspective. And the Vikings have improved there. The Lions have improved there. The Bears have improved there. The Lions are going to get better just by getting Aiden Hutchinson and others healthy, players that they didn't have down the stretch last year, right? I just worry that the Packers don't fully grasp. They've had a long history now, better part of 20 or 30 years, where they've been able to run the roost. And there've been years where the Bears have popped up, but then they crash right back down. And for the most part, the same with the Vikings, the same with the Bears and the Lions. These teams are legit, and I worry. I'll play this comment one more time. I hear stuff like this, and I worry.
We won 11 games. I know it was good for third place in our division. It's one of those crazy years, man.
I don't know that it was a crazy year. I think these teams are just good. The Lions have been building it up smartly, hiring good people for a couple of years now. The Vikings care. Look, there's so many teams around the league. The Bears, up until this year, I don't know that they cared that much. Or their ownership was too dumb to realize that you need to spend money on coaches. Surprise! You need to spend money to get the best people. And the Bears at least got a clue this offseason. The Vikings have always had a clue, and they've always cared, right? They invest. Ownership invests. They spend. Facilities, players, everything, coaches. This is not just a one-off. So in watching the moves that the Packers make or don't make, and in listening to comments, and again, that's back from January, but I don't like the idea that, well, like, yeah, we won 11 games last year. Weird year, though. Well, guess what? You win 11 games this year, that might do better than third place in the division again. So I worry that the Packers don't really fully grasp the situation that they're in this division and in this conference as well. The Rams are great. The Eagles are great. The Commanders are getting better. And I think the Niners will be good. I don't know that they're going to be a force on the same level of their Super Bowl team, but I kind of refuse to believe that the Buccaneers will fall off. The Niners will fall off, but the Buccaneers too. That's a legit operation. I think the Panthers might. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you that the Panthers are all of a sudden going to pop up and be better than the Packers, but I think they've made some smart moves as well. So just sitting back and waiting for the other teams around you in the division to crumble, not really a strategy that's going to fly in 2025. It might have flown in 2017. It might have flown in 2012. It's not going to fly in 2025, and that worries me with the Packers. Let's take a break. 5 minutes. We'll continue the show next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show, mostly talking about the Packers signings and the offseason so far. And look, we're not even to legal free agency yet. That begins tomorrow, but the legal tampering period began yesterday, so teams can begin talking to players, which really means they can announce who they've been talking to in the terms that they've agreed upon. So everything's, a step early. Really, the legal tampering period should mean, all right, now you guys can talk, and then you announce the deals on Wednesday when free agency begins. But really, they talk and then are ready to announce deals when legal tampering begins. So it's a step early, right? Which, of course, there's no way to legislate. There's no way to actually, but who cares? Announce on a Monday, announce on a Wednesday. There have been plenty of moves made in the NFL over the last 48 hours. We're kind of reacting to that and talking about that. And the Packers aren't sitting on their hands, right? Nate Hobbs gives Jeff Hafley a legit chess piece to move around based on different matchups, week to week. And I don't really love the signing of Aaron Banks, but it's hard to fault the general manager for investing in O-line. And I think it's difficult to really grade or evaluate that signing yet, because I think it's going to beget other changes and other moves. I think Aaron Banks. These are the two most forgettable names, I swear to goodness sake. I swear to Pete. Aaron Banks. I have it written on a Post-it on the computer monitor in front of me. I've said it 100 times since yesterday. I still can't remember it. Nate Hobbs, the corner, that's a very straightforward signing. Chess piece. Jeff Hafley can move him around week to week. Aaron Banks, I think this signing is going to beget other changes, and we're trying to maybe figure out. So Elton Jenkins moves to center. That's been widely reported. I accept that. Not Josh Myers, but Zach Tom is extended as your right tackle. What do you do at right guard? Sean Ryan. Okay, he's going to need a contract. Do you also then extend Rasheed Walker at left tackle? Okay, so maybe Jordan Morgan then eventually takes over at right guard. Or, I've heard from a couple different people that maybe the Packers could be looking to shop Rasheed Walker, which maybe then slots Jordan Morgan in at left tackle, which, hey, if Jordan Morgan can play left tackle, great. That's a big leap from can't stay healthy and Hackett at guard as a rookie to all of a sudden you're starting your number 2 as the everyday left tackle. Just worries me a little bit. So we're trying to, especially look around the division and see what the Lions and the Vikings and the Bears are doing. And all these teams are really making some good moves. I think this is a well-run, aggressive division in which all the teams right now give a crap. There's a lot of teams like the Bengals. Like, yeah, we'll try to win as long as it doesn't cost us too much. Not an issue for the Vikings. Not an issue for the Lions. I think this offseason it stopped, at least for a bit, being an issue for the Bears because they finally ponied up and spent big on the head coach that everyone wanted. This is not a division that's just going to go away and allow the Packers to ascend back to the top where they were for 30 years. And I worry, I'll play this cut one more time, that Matt LaFleur and the Packers maybe don't fully grasp their situation. That's my concern.
I think right at the moment, you don't feel it. But again, I think, we won 11 games. I know it was good for third place in our division. It's one of those crazy years, man.
And Vagabond John pointing out on the live stream that the Packers had a tremendous year in the sense of injury luck. Like, yeah, they didn't have any crippling massive injuries. They had Evan Williams misses 2 weeks, Christian Watson misses 3 weeks. Like that's not too bad. You're correct, Vagabond John. I think there's this weird argument to be made with the Packers. And I mentioned this at the end of the year when we're trying to evaluate, what kind of season they had. I think you can make a case that they were closer to an 8-win team than an 11-win team. I also think you could make a case that they could have won 13 or 14 games. A really weird, difficult to evaluate year because they were very close to losing to the Bears the first time. They were very close to losing to the Texans at home, right? They had a couple close calls, but then they also very easily could have beat Detroit on Thursday night on that game, right? They very easily could have beat Philly and Brazil had their kicker just not been a total mess. You know what I mean? So it's a really difficult year to go back and say, well, if this would have happened, okay, because then if you do that, you need to open up 10 other cans of worms. And I just don't know that it's productive, right? I'm less concerned with the amount of games that the Packers won last year and the role that luck played in those wins. I'm more concerned with, hey, guys, the rest of the division is really good, and that's not just going to end. It's not just, kind of a crazy year. No, it's a crazy good division where the owners care and the general managers are good and they're investing. 608-321-1670. A couple of calls before we take our last break. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Ridge Runner Mark, how we doing?
I'm doing excellent, Ridge Runner. How about you?
Not too shabby, leaving work. Something stuck with me that you said yesterday when we were talking about the Aaron Banks guy they brought in for the O-line, that the Packers were what, number 3 in pass protection last year?
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. For me, as soon as I heard that, I'm like, yeah. But the eye test, I felt like Jordan Love was running around a lot. He had collapsing pockets. He had tight throwing windows. I don't know that I feel, and again, my expert eyeballs, that they looked all that solid all year. And I'm wondering if there's a disconnect between what the numbers say versus what we were watching and seeing, and that any upgrade or change to the O-line is beneficial no matter how it happens.
Yeah.
On top of that, Rasheed Walker, was he a rookie or was he a second year?
No, I think that was year number 3. I'm not sure, but this will be his last year under this current contract.
Okay. Because I don't feel like he was another name where people are like, he's that left tackle, I guess. He wasn't like blowing people's skirts up, so to speak. So
it was pretty good.
Bringing this guy in, maybe we need to look at it with a little bit of a closer lens of, this might turn out really, really good because it's going to be a good anchor for the rest of the line. And like you were saying, it's going to move things around and we're going to get a better cohesive unit, and it might just be that much better next year. But yeah, I just wanted to point out just the fact that the eye test, I felt like the O-line really kind of underperformed last year.
Interesting. So I'm just going to disagree with you. My eyes didn't feel that way. I appreciate your take, Ridge Runner. I think the games or the moments in which the offensive line struggled the most was like first half against the Lions. To me, that's a coaching thing. That's a get your guys ready to play thing. Have them prepared for aggressive blitzing thing. That's not a quality of O-line play. That's the coaches need to get with these guys, feel how they're feeling and have them ready to play. That's that issue. Like, and same in the, in the postseason. It's like, I don't know. Zach Tom had his worst game of the year when it mattered most. Is drafting another player going to fix that? No, you need Zach Tom to play his best ball when it matters most. That's been an issue with the Packers, especially in the playoffs under Matt LaFleur. That's a LaFleur thing. 608-321-1670. One more call. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Mike in Eau Claire.
What's going on, Mike?
I need my coach to sound more than like he's smoking a doobie in a van down by the river. Man, it was a crazy year, dude. No, dude, no. That's not, come up with a plan. We got our butts kicked. Let's go, dude.
You almost got swept in the division.
Let you go, brother.
Thanks, Mike. That's a good call. I appreciate it. Yeah, I don't like the soundbite either. I that's from January. It's not like that's new, but it stuck with me to the point where I remembered I was thinking about it on my drive-in. I lied. We got time for one more. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Dean.
What's up, Dean? You're always efficient.
You heard my call this morning, Ben?
Yeah.
The Brent Sooner approach. Yeah. No, only compliments for you, but I was trying to be funny. In terms of J.J. McCarthy's Rookie of the Year campaign, is he still eligible for Rookie of the Year considering he was injured in the preseason? I don't know the technicalities.
I don't know either. That might just be an NBA thing. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I don't think he should be, and
I
I don't think that's how it should work in the NBA either. It's your first year, not your first year playing.
He will be in our hearts. I think I love the signings. I was going to call yesterday with Tales of Woe. I love the signings of this line getting beefed up. Get Darisaw back. We're coming.
Yeah. And Dean, you're Vikings because you're a Viking guy. Apparently no interest in Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers is very interested in the Vikings. That's what I heard when I asked around today. Let's take a 3-minute break. We'll wrap up the show next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show. I got a text from Coyote Mike, 608-321-1670. It's just pictures of the border wall because he's in El Paso. Mike, where are you walking? You're walking directly next to the border? Hardly looks aesthetically pleasing. Good for you enjoying a stroll down in El Paso. I appreciate the call from earlier. Fun Packers conversations tonight. Tomorrow, we're going to have Jesse Temple, and we can talk about the signing that they made. Or I shouldn't say signing because that makes it sound like they signed a free agent, although money is changing hands now in college football. But they, I guess, procured the signing of a 3-star wide receiver who had offers from Michigan State. And I think some school in Indiana, 3-star. We'll talk about that with Jesse tomorrow. And spring ball starts within the next 2 weeks here. So he's got a story up at The Athletic of things that he's watching for and looking for in the coming weeks. So definitely give that a read today or tomorrow. And we'll get the rundown from Jesse. I also just don't like asking Jesse, like, hey, you have a story on this. Tell us all about it. I want people to go read it. You know what I mean? An Athletic subscription, if you subscribe to one thing for sports writing or for sports content, The Athletic is the top of the list just because there's so much. But you also have access to Jesse's work, who joins all of our shows 3 times a week, or I guess once a week, but on 3 different shows. So we're looking forward to Jesse tomorrow night. Andy Herman on Thursday, if you just want to mark your calendar for the rest of the week. Friday night, we're going to be at the Double Tap on State Street. I will be broadcasting the show there from 4 to 6. So for our Madison listeners, please come on down. Vagabond John is probably going to put on a clinic on the pinball machines. You can witness that. You can bear witness. Ebo will be there as well. He's going to be there until 8. I'll probably hang around a little bit after the show. I might not be there until 8, but I'll hang around if there's listeners hanging around. Have some drinks, play some games. It's an arcade bar, and we will be giving away tickets for the opening weekend of March Madness in Milwaukee. And the tickets will get you into all the games for the entire weekend, which is an insane value, especially if Wisconsin ends up there. And Wisconsin's probably going to have to perform pretty well in the Big Ten tournament for that to happen, but now we have something to cheer for. Those tickets could be crazy expensive. I mean, they'll be crazy expensive, even more so if the Badgers are there. So come down to the Double Tap, our WOZN listeners here in Madison on Friday, the show from 4 to 6, and then we'll be hanging out for a couple of more hours, giving away koozies and merch, and of course, getting you signed up to win those March Madness tickets as well. Have an excellent night tonight. Bucks Pacers, we'll keep an eye on that, and that's probably where we'll begin the show tomorrow. Thank you for listening always. I appreciate it.